Dogworks Radio is sponsored by Alaska Dogworks. Check out their website at alaskadogworks.com. Radio Free Palmer 89.5 KVRF presents Mushing Radio, hosted by Robert Forto. Mushing Radio is about dog-powered sports, living in the Great White North, and mushing. Visit our website at mushingradio.com. Here is your host, Robert Forto.
Hello and welcome, everybody. This is Robert Forto, and you're listening to Mushing Radio here on KVRF 89.7 in the Mat-Su Valley. RadioFreePalmer.org is our live streaming site, and you can find all of our episodes on dogworksradio.com. Be sure to check us out over on social media by searching Dogworks Radio. And today we're continuing our series with Rock on Racing. We're talking to the dad of the family. This is an entire family that is involved with mushing, and it's a highlight of our season for sure. His name is Matt Randall, and he's calling in from Anchorage, Alaska. Matt, how's it going today?
It's going great. How are you today?
All is well. We have so much snow, I don't know what to do with it, but it's been a heck of a year for mushing, and you guys have had quite the year yourself. Matt, could you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're all about, please?
Yeah, I'm, like you mentioned, a dad and the father behind Rock on Racing, and I have a wonderful wife, Casey, and we have two kids, Addie Ann and Theo, and we all enjoy being out with the dogs and spending time with them, and of course being on the runners too. And it's been quite a whirlwind this year, and we've learned an awful lot, and we've enjoyed it immensely, and look forward to learning more, and look forward to getting on the runners every day.
So, Matt, I remember just a couple of years ago, I was talking to our mutual friend, Matt Pavilio, about you guys getting involved with mushing. And I remember distinctly at one of our club meetings, he said, I've got to get my buddy Matt on the runners. He's never done anything of any distance on a dog team. And that was just a year or two ago. But I know that you guys have been involved with the other side of mushing for a long time, volunteering and helping out at races and handling and all of that. But you're relatively new to this sport, aren't you?
We are. Yeah, we're very new. We ran a few miles a couple different times over the last couple of years, but we've fallen in love with the sport, and we knew it was only a matter of time until we got dogs of our own. We weren't quite sure when that would be, and everything just kind of fell into place this year. We're obviously still very green, but we've learned a ton, and we're just very fortunate to have all the help and the mentorship that we've had. We've been just learning on the fly, and really starting from scratch, and trying to soak up everything that we can from as many different mushers that we come in contact with.
So in the show that we had with Casey for Rock on Racing, for guys that just tuned in and may not have heard that, definitely go back to our website and type in Casey Randall, and you can hear the other side of this story. But we were talking to Casey about how you guys acquired dogs and where they stay and how many you have and all of that. And it came relatively quick for you guys. But what I want to focus with you, Matt, is you are the one in the family that has the full-time job, meaning you go to work every day and, put in your 8 hours a day, and then of course do everything that is involved with mushing on the other parts of the day. Can you explain that a little bit, what it's like to get up and go to work every day and then do almost another full-time job aside from that after work each afternoon?
Yeah, it really is like another full-time job. I'm very fortunate that my job is pretty much 8 to 5 every day. so I can count on having the evenings and the weekends off and available to go run dogs, or, there's a constant list of dog chores and equipment repairs and things that I'm always wanting to get to, but never seem to have enough time to do. Or I'm racing around at the last minute trying to, find a new set of runner plastic or whatever the case may be. And what we are very fortunate with is, that our kids love to be out there so much. In case it's available more to train, because they did most of the training this year. We have about 2,400 miles on the dogs altogether with racing and everything. And I would say that for the training, they probably did at least 3/4 of it. So, not ideal for me, to then go out and do a 300-mile race without being on the runners as much as I would have liked to have been. In fact, I almost didn't do the Copper Basin when I was signed up for it this year. And there were some folks that called and convinced me that I was probably a lot more ready than what I thought. Mark Stellan was one. He's full of a lot of wisdom. And then your Olsum just happened to call right before the race and just to check in and offered me a lead dog that we had used last year. And her name is Naya. And she gave me a lot of confidence just to be able to get out there and get to the starting line. I was most worried about that first run. It's a 75-mile run from Glen Ellen out to Lake Louise. And, I was terrified, to be honest with you. But having Naya and then another really good lead dog that Nick Petit has given us, or kind of permanently loaned us, I should say, is Raven. And so having that combination of two lead dogs was gave me the confidence to get out there and start the race. So, I guess I got away from your question a little bit there. It getting back to the work thing, it's a lot of work, a lot of time, in addition to my 9-to-5 job, being out there and maintaining a dog yard and the equipment, and still trying to get on the training regimen as much as I can and being as involved as I can.
So, Matt, you already started telling the story a little bit about the Copper Basin, and I'm going to jump into that here in just a second. But before we set that up, Casey had mentioned on her show that you guys fully embraced that Alaskan lifestyle, and anybody that follows you guys on Facebook knows exactly what I'm talking about with all that you guys have done over the last few years here in Alaska. First and foremost, you guys built your own home there on the hillside of Anchorage, and you've done it all yourselves. Can you tell a little bit about that? I think our listeners would really enjoy hearing about how you guys have pretty much started from scratch, meaning you guys bought a plot of land and did the whole thing, built it and are working on it and all that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's been quite a project, very rewarding. We bought the land quite a few years ago. Casey, I'll back up a little bit. Casey was sick with cancer, and we had to go down to Houston, Texas for her to get treatment. And when we moved back to Alaska, we loved the house that we were in, but it just had too many bad memories. So, we were ready for a change. And so we bought some land up in Bear Valley, and it's up in the mountains right at tree line. And it's an area that we've always liked to go hiking in anyways. We've always loved to hike. So we bought the land and, just started developing it as we could afford to, and built the driveway, and took a couple more years and finally got to the point ready to start building the house. And so I had a good friend, Aaron Bork, and my father-in-law come up from Montana, and my father-in-law from Michigan. And Aaron was here about a week, and my father-in-law was here a couple of weeks, and the three of us got the whole house framed in about a week. But my father-in-law had zero building experience, and I had a little bit, and Aaron had quite a bit more than me, but none of us were builders. So we were all, again, learning on the fly, kind of like we have been with dog mushing here. And, we got it framed in, and of course it was late fall when we were doing it, just the way that timing and everything worked out. So we had to fight the weather, and I think it was the second day storm came in, and there's extreme winds up here, and we see over 100 miles an hour often. Luckily, this storm wasn't that bad, but it was blowing sideways rain, and it's blowing 50 to 60 miles an hour for a couple of days there. But we were on limited time since Aaron had to be back to Montana in a week, so we kept working through it, and we were sleeping in a little camper trailer out in the driveway here, and or no, I take that back. We had a little camper, but we also have a weather port, which is kind of like a yurt setup that we had been living in, and so we were staying in that, and then we'd go down in the morning to the camper trailer, and we'd cook breakfast, and Casey and the kids were gone down to Michigan, I believe, to see family while we were building. So it was just the three of us guys, and we'd have some breakfast and drink coffee and get up in the morning and go, pound boards together until 9 or 10 o'clock at night and go get some sleep. And we did that every day for a week and got it all dried in. And then we've just been working on it as time and money allows. And, we still aren't done, but we're getting closer and closer, and we're hoping to have everything wrapped up this summer on it. So it's been another learning adventure for us. We love the house. It's off grid, so we've learned all about generators and how to fix generators and solar power, and we finally did get running water, and we got a well and septic put in this summer, so that was a big improvement. No more outhouse for us. So even though we are in Anchorage, it's a rural area where we're up in the mountains, and we're not in the city. It doesn't feel like we're in the city at all. So it's a good, for now, it's a great place for us to be able to, where I can have a short drive into work every day, but we aren't in town.
That story there is just as much of an Alaskan story as dog mushing. And I know that this is a mushing podcast, but I wanted you to tell that story because it is so Alaskan that you started pretty much from scratch and you built the house and you're still doing it with the job and with the mushing and the whole 9 yards. There are a lot of mushers out there that live everywhere and in between in Alaska that do very much the similar things that you do, and you guys have a very cool home up there, and I think you did a great job. So let's jump over to that Copper Basin, and you started talking about that first run and how you were terrified, but you had a couple of good dogs, but you had a lot of miles on those dogs. Most people that are entering a race like that do not have anywhere near that amount of miles on their dogs, and the dogs will do what they have to do the race, and typically the musher is just barking out commands and holding on, so to speak, for folks that have not had the chance to be on a sled. But you chose to pick what is arguably the hardest mid-distance race in Alaska, and it's often compared to how a lot of the Iditarod is set up with the checkpoints and the mountains and the run speed or run distances and all of that. So I asked Casey this, but I'm interested to hear your perspective on it. Why did you choose the Copper Basin over the Willow 300 or another race?
Robert, I think my wife chose that for me, to be honest with you.
Okay.
It's a race that we have handled for the last couple of years. So, I was at least a little familiar with the set points. it's not country or trails that I'd ever been on before, like the Willow 300 is. I'm more familiar with that area. This is sit in the valley, but you know, it was a challenge, and you know, it was. I wasn't worried about the dogs. Several of them had finished the Copper Basin before, and like you said, they had a lot of training on them. We had such great mentorship from Robert Forto and Joel Olsom and Nick Petit. You know, we knew that the dogs were ready and could handle it. It was myself that they always say that the Musher is the weak link. I was really the weak link. But you know, it was. I figured if I could do the Copper my first time for my first race, that you know, and finish it and finish it well. That it gave me a lot of confidence to sign up for. You know, I went in very. I was planning on taking a 6-hour rest at each checkpoint, which would total 24 hours. You only need 18 hours of rest. You know, I had my only goal was to finish. And of course to have strong, healthy dogs and injury free. But my only personal goal was to finish. I didn't have any, you know, ideas on what my time might be or anything like that. And I ended up, you know, the dogs were ready. I ended up taking less than 6 hours at a couple of the last 2 checkpoints. But yeah, all in all, it went pretty well. Of course, I made a lot of rookie mistakes, and you know, I still remember pulling into the first checkpoint and just not hardly knowing what to do. You know, I fumbled around a lot. I got the dogs a meal cooked, and you know, got their coats on them, got them bedded down, and the dogs were happy and comfortable. But I was very inefficient at what I was doing, and I really enjoyed learning on the fly, you know, knowing that I was inefficient and talking to Jesse Holmes for a few minutes. And, you know, he gave me just some great tips on what to do and what to look for in the dogs and how to feed them right away when I pull in before they're ready to be bedded down. And that was at Lake Louise checkpoint. And then Robert Bunsen met me at the Sourdough checkpoint, and he was full of great information as well. Just, you know, things that I had never experienced before, like boiling water to cook them a meal, and instead of dumping all the meat in at one time, dump in one piece at a time so you don't end up with big frozen block of meat. And, you know, just simple things that is just second nature to most mushers that is all brand new to me. So by the end of the race, at the last checkpoint, I still had made plenty of mistakes, but I was much more efficient and even got a little bit of sleep at that checkpoint. And, you know, it was really fun. I had a couple of really good handlers that were there, and they met me at every checkpoint. They made life a lot easier. You know, they brought my drop bags down to me. You know, they were there just to give me some confidence and keep me going. So then at the last checkpoint, Casey and the kids were able to drive up there, and they met me. They weren't able to make it up until the end, but it was great to see them, of course, and be able to spend a few minutes with them.
So for folks that may not know, when you're running an Iditarod qualifier, nobody can help you on the race, meaning your handlers or your family or whatever. Of course, other mushers can give you advice or tips and tricks, but technically you're there to prove your mettle, to see if you're able to do this as a qualifying race. So you can't accept any type of outside of assistance. So I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, Matt, before we get close to the end. Is first off, that was your first 300-mile race ever. It may have been your first distance race, if I'm not mistaken, but what in the world does the future hold for you? Are you thinking about Iditarod or Quest, or I know you're probably going to say one day at a time, but mushing is not a one day at a time sport. It's definitely about forecasting. You're always thinking about the next run, whether it's the next batch of puppies or the next leader in training or what. What is the future for Mr. Matt Randall?
If you would have asked me that at the beginning of the year, I would have said, no, I have absolutely no plans to run the Iditarod or the Quest. And, now I would say that is probably going to happen sooner than later. Don't have any definite plans yet, but it's definitely something where, I first I have to get qualified for it. And, I'm going to run one more 300 in April. I think it is April 5th. And then I'll have to run a 150 next year in order to be qualified. But yeah, I could definitely see myself, signing up for the Iditarod. I've always been really interested in the Yukon Quest. I just think that it just seems like some really wild country. Longer runs between checkpoints, more camping out, colder weather, darker weather because it's in January, earlier in the year, so the days are a lot shorter. I always kind of had a mystique about it that I could definitely see myself going out and doing the Yukon Quest one of these days.
Wow, that's some big aspirations, and I definitely wish you well. Matt, before I get to my final question that I ask everybody on the show, I want to make sure that we talk about at least one of your dogs. You had mentioned a couple of leaders that you got from your to help you out on that first qualifier, the Copper Basin. But tell us a quick story about one of your favorites. It could be anything. Does he or she have a quirk, or does they have a habit that they do or you do with them? What is a quick story about one of the dogs on your team?
Oh gosh, it's hard to pick out one, but definitely. One of them that stands out is definitely Raven. He came from Nick Petit, and he has run the Iditarod with Nick, with Christy Barrington, with Emily Maxwell, and he's getting a little long in the tooth now. He's getting up there in years, but he is just a neat dog. He always knows what to do. If you second guess him, you're probably going to be wrong. He knows more than what we do. And the little story from last night is Casey actually had him out last night with my daughter, and they had the two teams, and they got at a point on the trail where they had to turn around. So Casey she broke the cardinal rules of mushing here, but she tied off her sled and her team and went back to help Addie Ann get turned around with her team. And as they were working on it, she turned around and looked, and Raven had gone and turned the entire team around. He knew what they were doing and saw them turning Eddie Ann's team around, and so he himself took it upon himself to turn the team around and get them all lined out and ready to go back the way that they had just come from. And he just is full of stories like that where he knows what the next move is long before I do, and it gave all of us a lot of confidence just having a dog of that caliber, such a good leader. It definitely made our year and our races a lot easier having such a good lead dog up front there. So we will always be indebted to Nick for letting us use Raven this year. He's just a really special, one-of-a-kind dog.
And Matt, I always say a lot on this show is the dogs are the ones that are training each other. We're pretty much, just along for the ride a lot of the times. And a dog like Raven will do that. And I know you have a bunch of younger dogs on your team coming up and whatnot. But having those older dogs, no matter if they are getting up there in age or not, they are invaluable to help teach the next crew coming up. And I think that you have a special relationship there for sure. So Matt, the last question I have is the same question I asked all of our guests. And you guys are in a really unique position for that, because this is truly your rookie year as a dog musher and as a dog mushing family. And that is, if a person comes to you and they want one piece of advice, only one, and they want to get involved with the sport, they don't know if they want to do bike joring or the Iditarod someday, what would you tell that person if you could offer one piece of advice?
To get involved, whatever capacity that is, if it's volunteering as a handler or scooping a musher's yard for them, or being a volunteer at a race, or volunteering with the August Fund where they home retired dogs. Getting involved with in some capacity with the dogs, and for us, we learned so much, just by meeting as many different mushers as we could, going and visiting them, going to their dog yards, going for rides with them, whatever the case may be. And before we got dogs, we knew what direction we wanted to head. And I think if that was the advice I could give anybody, it would be to get involved and volunteer, help out, do whatever you can to learn as much as you can before you dive into the world of mushing.
And that's great advice. I wish everybody would heed that advice because, believe me, any musher out there would be happy for the extra help, whether it's scooping poop or packing booties or running that extra team or whatever. That experience is not only invaluable to you, but also the help is invaluable to them as well. So, Matt, thank you very much for joining us. We're talking to Matt Randall today of Rock On Racing. The entire family is involved with this sport, and I'm anxious to hear from the kids coming up on our next show. Again, thank you, and we'll talk again soon, okay?
Sounds great. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. On behalf of my guest today, Matt Randall, this is Robert Forto for Mushing Radio. We will see you guys next time. Goodbye.
From Dogworks Radio, this is Mushing Radio. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we invite you to subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll find a link on the episode notes. You can tap or swipe on the episode cover art, and you'll see some offers from our sponsors. You can support our show by supporting them. If you like what you have heard, we would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe too. Your hosts are Alex Stein and Robert Forto. Our producer is Robert Forto, created for Dogworks Radio.